Hi everyone, welcome to Jawaras. Today we are going to create a to-do web application using HTMX. We will use Spring Boot, Spring Data JDBC, HTMX, Thymeleaf and MySQL database. This video is divided in some sections. In the first section, we will look at all the tools and libraries which we will use. In the next section, we will do some initial setup. So you can jump to the next section if you are already familiar with all the tools which I mentioned above. Now let's discuss about the tools which we are going to use. First of all, we are going to use HTMX. So HTMX is a library that allows us to access modern browser features directly from HTML without using JavaScript. So basically it allows us to send requests to server without writing JavaScript. We can use attributes to send requests when the specified events are fired. Also, we can specify the target which should get replaced by the response we get back. While using HTMX, we need a backend where we can send the requests. That's where Spring Boot comes into the picture. Spring Boot makes it very easy to create standalone Spring based applications. In order to render HTML using Spring Web, we need something called template engine, and Thymeleaf is one of those. It is widely used and very common template engine which we'll be using in this video. And we will store the to-do items in a MySQL database, and we will use Spring Data JDBC to interact with database from the Spring application. We will use one more front-end library called Bootstrap, which is used to create and style elements. We will not make fancy UI, but a decent one using it. Now that we have discussed about all the tools and libraries, let's go to the next section where we will set up the project. Welcome to the second part of the video where we will do all the initial setup for the project. Now let's create a Spring Boot project. In order to do that, we will go to Spring Initializer website, which is start.spring.io. Here, for build tools, I will select Gradle Groovy, language Java, Spring Boot version 3.2.1. For group, I will specify dev.javarus.htmx. For artifacts, I will specify HTMX to packaging is jar and Java version is 17. Now we need to select some dependencies. First of all, let's select Spring Web since we are creating a web application. Second, select Thymeleaf since we will use that as template engine. Third, we need to choose a MySQL driver or connector in order to connect to MySQL database. And last, we will select Spring Data JDBC, which will make our life easier while doing database operations. Now click on download button. It will download a zip file which contains everything for us to get started. So it has downloaded HTMX todo.zip. Now let's verify using ls command. So we can see HTMX todo.zip here. Let's unzip it using unzip command. And let's remove the original zip file and go to HTMX todo directory. Here we can see all the content which is generated by the Spring Initializer website. Open this directory in your preferred IDE. I'm using IntelliJ IDEA, but you can use anything you want. It will take some time to build and index the project initially. Now we need a MySQL server to store the to-do items. So either you can install MySQL server in your machine or you can use Docker to do that. So I'm using Docker. So we can go to this link which contains the MySQL image. And MySQL is the name of the image, and here I will use latest tag. Now in order to use this image, you can read this documentation. So either you can run this command and it will start up the container with MySQL server inside it, or we can use something called Docker Compose. So I will use the another method which is using Docker Compose file. So we need to create a file with the name dockercompose.yml. So let's go here. Let's create a new file, docker compose.yml, and here we need to create a node called services, which will have all the services which we need. We need only one service for MySQL, and we can give it any name. I will name it MySQL. This service needs the name of image. Now image name consists two things. First, the actual image name, which is MySQL, and then the tag. So I will use latest. We need to do some port mapping as well. So ports, I will map the port 3306 of my host machine to port 3306 of the container. We also need to set some environment variables. So you can find all the list of environment variables in this page. So these are all the environment variables. So here we will use MySQL root password to set the root password. I will use root as root password. The second variable which we need is MySQL database, which will be the name of the database. So whenever this container will be created, one database will be created with this name. So let's use HTMX as the database name, and then we will use MySQL user environment variable, which will be the username for this database. So let's use dev here, and then we need MySQL password, which will be the password for this user for this database. Let's just say pass here. Now let's run this file in order to create a container with MySQL server. To do that, we need to run this command, docker compose upd. So it says no configuration file provided. Ls we have, okay, so by mistake I created docker compose.yml file inside src folder, but we want to put it inside HTMX to do. Let's refactor it and let's run that command again. Now it has started the container. So you can see that using docker ps command that this container is running, and port 3306 of host machine is mapped to 3306 of the container, and this is the name of the container. So that is working. Now we have all the setup ready. We can actually start working on the project. I will meet you in the next part of the video. Hi everyone, welcome to the third part of the video. In this section, we will display the list of all the to-dos. So let's get started. First of all, in order to represent the to-do item, we need to create an entity. Let's create a class with the name todo. So go to main java dev.javarush.htmx todo, and let's create a class here. So I will create a record and the name will be todo. I have created a record so that I will get all the constructors, getters and setters out of the box. Now in order to connect to the database, we need to create a repository. Let's create a repository with the name todo repository. So create a Java class. It will be an interface and the name will be todo repository. And it will extend CRUD repository. So this is a generic interface and it has two tags. First is the type of entity, so that will be todo. The second is type of primary key. Now let's go back to the todo record, and here we need to specify all the fields. So first field will be ID and its type will be int. So let's just say integer ID. So this is the ID of the todo, and then we need title, and then we need a boolean flag which will denote whether this todo is completed or not. So let's say boolean completed. Now since this id will be the primary key in the table as well, so let's annotate it with id annotation. And now since the primary key has a type integer, here we can specify integer. So now we will get all the functionality like find it by id or find all to dos and everything. So here we need to create a method, because what we want to do is we want to fetch the to dos using the status whether they are completed or not. So for that we need to create a method. So the return type will be list of all the to do which will meet the criteria, and we will say find all by, so it will find all the to do's by completed. It will take one parameter which will be boolean completed. Now if we call this method with completed equal to false, then it will get us, then it will give us all the to do items which are not yet completed. And if we call this method with completed equal to true, then it will give us all the to do items which are marked as completed. So we can remove this public from here. Now in order to handle request, we need to create a controller. Let's create a class with the name to do controller which will handle all the requests related to do items. So here click on create new Java class. Let's call it to do controller and annotate it with controller annotation. So pay attention here. I'm not annotating it with REST controller because we will return views from this controller as well. And let's give request mapping to do. So this controller will handle all the requests to this path. It will handle all the requests to do's path. Now let's create one default get mapping here. So get mapping, and let's say string index, and let's return index here. Now since we have added Thymeleaf on the class path, so Spring Boot will auto-configure the Spring application to use Thymeleaf as template engine or use Thymeleaf to resolve the views. And what Thymeleaf does is it will match this string with the template which is present in templates directory. So in order for this to work in templates directory, we need to create an HTML file with the name index.html. So I will give it name index. So we have created index.html file, and for title let's just say to do, and for now let's print hello. So now this index is mapped to this index.html file. Now we can start it. So let's start the application, and we are getting this error, failed to configure a data source, because we have added Spring Data JDBC dependency, but we have not specified the database configuration. So we need to do that. Let's go to application.properties and specify some database configuration. First of all, we need to specify database URL. For that, the property name is spring.datasource.url. And since we are using JDBC, so the URL is JDBC, and we are using MySQL localhost. The port is 3306, and the database is name is HTMX, which we have defined in docker compose.yml. This is the database name, and we will use this username and password to connect to this database. So let's do that. Spring dot data source dot password. Before that, I will put the username, data source dot username. So username will be dev and the password will be AWS pass. So when you create a real applications, you don't specify the username and username, password, and database URL here. Instead, you specify them using environment variable. But for now, we are good here. So let's restart it. So it's working without any problems. So I will go to localhost 8080 and sudo, and we can see hello being printed. So that means this basic setup is working fine. Now let's create a schema to store to-do items to the database. So we have not yet done it. So let's go to resources, create a new file. We create a new file, and I will call it schema.sql. And let's say create table if not exists, and the name of the table will be to do, and it needs three things. One is id will be serial, that means integer and auto increment, and it will be primary key. The second will be title, which will be text, and it should not be null. The third will be completed, which will be a boolean, and it will also be not null. So what we want is, whenever the application starts, we want to run this SQL query. So let's go to application.properties, and we need to specify one property here. We need to tell Spring application to tell that we need to run schema.sql file on initialization of the application. So we can do spring.sql.init mode, and there are three possible values. One is always, so it will always initialize the database. One is embedded, so it will initialize the database only if we are using embedded database, and never means it will never initialize the database. So in production you should use never, but here I will use always, so it will always create the table. Now let's go to todo controller, and here inject the todo repository as dependency. So private final todo repository, and let's add it as constructor parameter. Now what I want to do is, at initialization I want to delete all the todo items which are in the database. So this dot repository dot delete all, and after that I want to create few todo items. This dot repository dot save new todo. The id will be null, so it will be auto generated by the database. The title will be, let's say, learn HTMX. And is it completed? No, so completed will be false. So we have created four todo items, and they will be saved to the database. Now let's display those items using index.html file. So we need to have a model here, model, and we need to set an attribute to the model so that we can use that attribute in the index.html file or in the template. So I will say model.add attribute. So the name will be todos, and the value will be this dot repository dot find all by completed. So I want to find only those to do items which are not completed. So it will give us all the to do items which are not completed. And now I can go to index.html file here, and here I can access those to dos. So, and I want the autocomplete of Thymeleaf as well. So here I can say XML ns th equal to http www.thymeleaf.org. So now we will get the autocomplete from Thymeleaf. So let's do that here. So first let's create one h1, so to do's, and second let's create an ordered list here, and create a block, so th block, and I will say th each, so each to do in to do. So for each to do we want to run this li, and let's say th text. So the text will come from the to do dot title. So we got the text, and let's say the default text is text. So let's just run it for now. So run the application and refresh the page here, and you can see we got this to do and these two to do items which are not completed. Now let's add HTMX and Bootstrap to our project as well. So go to HTMX here. In order to use HTMX, either we can use a CDN or we can download a copy and put it in our file system. So in production, we should do that. I will going to use the CDN approach here. So I will copy it and I will paste it. Since this is JavaScript, so I will paste it at the end, just before the body tag. I will paste it here. Now let's add the bootstrap as well. So in order to add bootstrap, we can use CDN. So I will copy this link to the CSS. And since it is a CSS, I want to include it inside head and another this JavaScript. I want to add it after the JavaScript of HTMX. So I will paste that here. So now we have included HTMX and bootstrap here. Now let's modify something. So I want to make a nav bar of these to dos. To do that, I will just go to nav bar and I will search for one. So let's say I want to use this nav bar. So I can just copy this one, paste it here. So this is a nav bar. So I can remove to dos here. Here I can say to dos. Now I want to make some styling list as well. So let's go to list. Okay, so this is the basic list. We can use that one as well. So let's see. Okay, so this seems good to me. So I will use this one and do that. So this is unordered list. I want ordered list, so I can change it to OL ordered list. This is the class, okay, which is fine. I want to give it one more class which is to do list, so it may come handy to us. And for each we need to do that. So let's copy it, cut it from here to here, and for each li we need to just give this class. And let's remove these li's and remove this order list. Okay, restart the application and let's reload this page. Now we are getting this list here, but I want a checkbox just before learn HTMX and learn JDBC as well. Okay, so I will copy it and remove this th text from here, paste, put it here. So and this is a checkbox, and instead of default checkbox we need th text, and the text will be to do dot title. Let's remove it. Okay. Let's restart the application and refresh the page here. We are able to check the items. Now we need a delete icon as well here. So let's go to icons and search for delete icon. I will use this one. So we need to add some thing. So yeah, so we can use CDN to include bootstrap icon. This is a CSS. So I will add it in the head. So we have added the bootstrap icons. Now we can use the icon. This one, this, and add it here. So the icon will be visible. Let's restart the application again and reload the page. Now we can see this uh, delete icon in front of the title. Now we also need to display the list of completed to dos. So for that I will just copy this one. I will paste that here and I will say completed, and I will add some, let's say some line. So for each to do, so instead of to do, let's say to do's completed, to do completed. So it needs to do's completed. So let's remove this id something from here. And here, instead of label, let's use del, and this checkbox should be checked. Okay, so let's restart the application and reload the page. So we can see one line here, but we don't see any checked item here because we have not provided that to the view. So let's go to the controller, and here I will say model dot add attribute to do completed, this dot repository of find by completed, and completed should be true. Restart the application, go here, reload the page, and we can see the completed items. We are able to display the list of not completed and completed items. In the next part of this video, we will add the ability to complete one item. Welcome everyone to the fourth section of this video. In this section, we will add the capability to tick one to-do item. Let's go to index.html. This is a list where we have uncompleted items and we want the ability to complete one item. So wherever we check this box, we want to fire a request. So I will say hx put. So this will be a put request to do's, and the endpoint will be complete. So this will be the endpoint, and we also want to send the ID of the to do, but we cannot add that here dynamically. So for that we need to use hx at th attribute tag. So here we can add the attribute dynamically. So the attribute will be hx put equal to, and the value will start with at the rate, then curly parenthesis, and the value of this hx put attribute will be to do complete, and here we will have the id of the to do. So let's just say id here, and id will be to do dot id. So let's restart the application and reload the page here. So it has been reloaded. Let's go to element. This is the first list. If we go to the first li and this checkbox, we can see hx put equal to do's complete 25. So 25 is the id of the this to do item. If we go to the second li and see hx put to do's completed 28. So this is the id of this to do item. So we are able to put these tags here. Let's go to network and check this box. If we check it, we can see one request is being sent to this to do's completed 28 endpoint, and the response we are getting is 404 not found because we have not defined any controller to handle this request, and the requested method is put, and we are not sending any data or anything here, and in the response we are getting that 404 not found. So let's implement this endpoint. So go to do controller here, and I will say put mapping string, let's say complete. Yeah, and this put mapping should be to complete path. So to do's we have already defined here, and the complete will be appended after to do and complete, and it will take the id of to do. So let's say it is taking path variable, and the path variable id, its type will be integer id. So this will be the id of the to do item. Now what do we want to do? We want to complete this to do item. So first of all, we want to find the to do. Say this dot repository repository dot find by id and we'll provide id dot or else. So if we don't find anything, then we will just throw the error. And so we have a to do here. Now what do we want to do? To do dot set. So we cannot modify the to do. We need to create a new to do in order to modify it in the database. So let's do that. So to do new to do equal to new to do. So not this to do to do dot id. So id will be the id of the to do. We will not use null as the id because otherwise the database will create a new to do, but we don't want to do that. We want to use the id of the previous to do, so it will get updated in the database. Then to do dot title and to do and completed will be true because we are completing it. And we will save this new to do to the repository. This dot repository dot save new to do. And now what do we want to do is we want to delete this learned JDBC from here. So we will return an empty response. So let's do that. So return this empty string for now. And here let's put response body. That means whatever we return should be written as it is. We don't want to consider this as view name. We want to consider this as response. Let's run again. Now let's go to index.html and here. So whatever response we will get back, what do we want to do with that? If we don't do anything, then this input will get replaced by that. So we want to make li as the target. So let's say hx target will be closest li and hx swap will be outer HTML. So what will happen is whenever we will get back the response, it will search for the closest li tag. So it will find this tag and it will swap the whole tag with the response. And since we are getting empty response back, so this whole li will be replaced with an empty string. So that means this will get deleted. Let's restart the application and reload the page here. Now let's click on learn JDBC. You can see that has been deleted. And in the response we are not getting anything back. If you go to elements and see in the first list there is only one li. The second list item has been deleted. Now if you see at the bottom we have only two completed items. If we reload the page we have three completed items because this learned JDBC has is marked as completed, but we did not tell frontend to display that in completed list. Now let's see how to do that. So now what we want is we want two responses with a single request. So we want two views. First view will delete the original item and the second view should add a new item to the completed list. Now that is called out of band swap. So if you go to HTMX and look at out of band swaps, so we can have as many view as we want. So let's do that. So for that I will create a new template here, new file, and I will give it a name to do complete response.html. First we want to return an empty view. So for that we don't need to do anything. And second I want to return a completed to list item. So for that I can go to index.html and I can copy this one. But copy and pasting is not a good practice. What if in the future we modify this li item? In that case we need to look where we are using this one and we need to go and modify there as well. So in order to prevent copy and pasting, Thymeleaf has one concept called fragments. So we can make it a fragment. So let's create a fragment here, ts fragment. So we can give this fragment any name. So let's give to do item completed. So this is the name of this fragment. Now we can use this name and then this fragment will be inserted. So let's go to this response, and here let's create a div first. So div, and I will say HX swap OOB. Now what will happen that if any element meets this criteria, that will be swapped with the response which is inside this div. So let's say I will say before and then colon, and then I will say dot to do list completed. Now what will happen that it will search for an element with this criteria. That means it will search for an element with this class to do list completed, and it will find this one. I guess yeah, it will find this to do list completed, and the response which is inside this div will be put before ending of this element. That means just before this tag the response will be put, and here I will add that fragment. So th block th insert equal to, so this is just the syntax to insert the template, and here we will first specify the file name where we will find the fragment. So the file name is index and fragment is to do item completed. Now let's rerun the application and restart it. So since we rerun the application, so it deleted all the to do items and it created new to do items. That's why we see to do items are not completed and two are completed. Now let's check learn JDBC. So we don't see that here. So there must be some problem. Go to network. So still in the response we are not getting anything because we have created this file but we have not used it. So go to do controller, remove this response body from here, and here write to do complete response. And also you can see we are using this fragment, and this fragment needs one to do, so we need to provide the to do as well. So here let's inject the model here, and we need to put one to do inside this model. So model dot add attribute, the name is to do and the value will be new to do. And let's rerun the application, reload the page here, click on learn HTMX, and you can see learn HTMX is visible inside completed items. Now similarly, let's implement the functionality of unchecking as well. So currently if we uncheck it, nothing happens. So let's go to index.html, and inside this checkbox we have these many things. So I will just copy them, and let's copy the whole input, copy this input, and I will paste that here. Form check input, type is checkbox, and this should be already checked. So I will just say checked. These are the attributes as export. So instead of complete, now the request will go to uncomplete endpoint, which we will create right now. It will replace the closest li, so it will remove this li element if we return empty response back from the backend. Okay, so let's do that. So go to todo controller.java and let's copy this whole method, and let's uncomplete. This sounds weird, but this just means that we want to uncheck the to do item. So we could have named it uncheck, but let's stick with uncomplete. Path variable id model, and instead of completed equal to true, we want to change completed to false, and to do new to do. Now instead of to do complete response, let's say to do incomplete response, and let's create a new file called to do incomplete response.html, and here I will just copy paste this response, and I will add it before ending of to-do list, not to-do list completed, to-do list, and it will be to-do item, not to-do item completed. So let's go to index.html, and we will return one to-do item, but we need to create a fragment here. ts fragment will be to-do item, and we are using this fragment here, to-do item. So not here, here, incomplete response here. We are using this fragment to-do item, and it will be appended before ending of to-do list class. So this is the to-do list class. Okay, so let's restart the application and reload the page here. So VC4 here, let's click on learn JDBC. So it is working. Let's uncheck learn JDBC. Yeah, it is working. So learn HTMX, so it is here, and click on take a walk, so it is here. Now let's reload the application whether the UI is consistent with backend or not. So we reload it. Now keep in mind that learn JDBC and take a walk are not completed, and learn Java and learn HTMX are completed. Reload the page. You can see learn JDBC and take a walk are not completed, and learn HTMX and learn Java are completed. So that's it for this section. So in this section we have seen how to check to do and how to uncheck the to do. Now in the next section we will see how to add a new to do item to the list. Welcome everyone to the fifth section of this video. In this section we want to add the ability to add new to do to the list. So we will create a text box and a button. So the text box will be used to enter the title of the to do, and whenever user clicks on that button, a to do with that title should be created. So first of all, let's create the text box and that button. So we can use this one. We will create this one right here, C, and I will put that. Let's put that between these two lists. Type will be text. Class is form control. ID is input password 2, but here we will give ID like to do new title. So this will be the ID, and we need to give a name. So name will be, let's say, title, and placeholder will be to do title, and label 4 will be to do new title. This will be the class is visually hidden. So let's remove this class, and let's restart the application. Reload the page here. So we see this password and confirm identity. Let's remove this label from here. We don't want the label here. Instead of confirm identity, it will be add. Okay, restart the application. Reload the page. We see to do title and add button. So now it is working. So let's add some attributes related to HTMX to this button. So what do we want to do is, whenever we click on button, we want to send a post request. So let's just say hx post equal to, and we want to make a post request to to-do's endpoint. But we also need to send something. So with this request, we want to send the content of this input box. So we can just say hx include, and we give id. So id is to do new title, and refresh it, reload the page, and go to inspect network, and let's enter test here. Click on add. Now one request is being sent to to-do's endpoint. It's a post request, and we have this payload title test. So we are able to send the request. Now let's handle the request in backend. So go to to-do controller and create post mapping here. Now the post mapping will be to to-dos endpoint only, and we have already specified to-dos here, so we don't need to specify any endpoint here. So let's just create a method which will be add, and it will get request param, and the name is title. Let's save it in a variable called title. So we have a title of the to do, and we want to create a new to do in the database. So let's just do that. We will say to do equal to this dot repository dot save new to do. The ID will be null, so the ID will be auto generated by the database. The title is the title which we got from the front end, and it won't be completed, so completed will be false. And now we need to return this to do. So let's say we got a to do from the backend. So what do we want to do then? So we want to add that to do to this list of to dos which are not completed. I will just say hx target will be this list, to do list. So hx target will be dot to do list and hx swap. So how do we want to replace the target? So we don't want to replace the target. What do we want to do is we want to add that response at the before the end of this target. So we can just say before end. In order to create or in order to return that to do item, we can just use this fragment here, but this fragment needs one to do. So let's do that. uh, get a model here, and we'll set model or add attribute to do. The value will be to do, and let's return index, and the name of the fragment is to do item. This to do item, to do item. Let's restart the application, reload the page. Now let's say test, click on add. As a test has been added here. We go to network, to do endpoint, and in the response we got this list item back, and we have added it before ending of this list. So go to elements, and this is the list which has 3 li items. The third li item is the one we just got back. Now let's see whether the checkbox is working fine or not. So if we take this test, it has been added to the completed items. Reload the page and it's working. But one thing to note is that let's say test 2, click on add. Now what we want is this test to this checkbox should have been empty after adding this to the list. So let's fix that. So what we can do is we can return a new empty text box here using out of band swap. So let's do that. So for that as well, we will create a new file called to do add response.html, and here we need two things. So first we need this fragment. So this is the syntax for fragment. I will add that here, and here we need to do item, not completed, to do item. And the second thing is we need to send that box. What we can do is go to index.html, and this is the sorry this is the input box. So what we can do is here we can give it one id. So id is already there, new to do new title. Now let's say hx swap out of band equal to true, and let's return this only. And we need to make this fragment as well, th fragment equal to do new title. So now I will explain what I did here. I will return this input as it is. So for that I can just use this th fragment. So here I will use th block th insert equal to index to do new title. Okay. Now since this block is empty, so I can do this. So what I did is I'm returning this input as well in the response. So here hx swap oob is true. That means this will search for an element with this id and it will find existing input there. It will replace that input with the current one. So let's run it, reload the page. Now we have 4 items here. Let's add another to do here. Add. So it's not working. Let's see why not. Okay, because we have not used this to do add response. So go here and instead of to do item, let's do to do add response. Reload the application, reload the page, test, and you can see we got the new text box and the new text box replaced the old text box. If we check this text test, it is marked as check, reload the page, it's working, uncheck it, reload the page, it's working. So we are able to add a new to do to the list of existing to do items. In the next section, we will see how to delete a to do item. Welcome everyone to the sixth section where we will implement delete functionality. So let's do that. So first of all, whenever we go to this delete icon, we want to make this cursor as pointer. So let's change the style, go to index.html and inside this I class, let's say style cursor pointer. I will add the same style to another I tag as well. Okay. So if we refresh it and reload the page, if we go here, we can see the hand, but nothing is happening. So here we need to add some hx attribute. So let's just add it to the first one or the second one, then we will just copy. Okay. So let's do that here. Let's say hx, we want to send a delete request to do the endpoint, but we also want to send the id of the to do. So we want to create an attribute with dynamic content. So we will use this syntax here. I will copy this syntax, I will paste it here. Instead of hx put the request hx delete. The attribute name is hx delete because we want to send a delete request to do the endpoint. We don't want anything else here and we want the id of the to do. And we will get the response back. And what do we want to target with that response? So with that response, we want to target the current li element. Let's do that. Th target will be closest li. So the closest li element, it will search in its parent and it will find the closest li element, and it will replace that with whatever response we get back. By default, it doesn't replace the entire element, it just replaces the inner content, but we want to replace the entire element. So for that we will use th swap not sandwich. So not th target, it is hx target and it is hx swap equal to outer html. Now it will swap the whole li element with the response. So now let's copy it to here, delete it and paste it here. Now we need to handle this delete request. So let's go to do controller and create a delete mapping, and we'll return any string and this string will be response body. So we will return an empty string. If we don't specify response body here, the Thymeleaf will start looking for a template with the empty name, which it won't find. So string delete, it will get a request. It will get path variable. So select to do's ID. It need an ID here. So ID path variable. The name of the path variable will be ID, and its type will be integer. And I want to call it ID in my Java code. So I want to remove that to do. So this dot repository dot delete by ID. The ID is ID. So now this to-do item will be deleted, and let's return empty string here. Restart the application and then reload the page here. Now we have four things here. So we don't have that delete icon here. What just happened? Go to index.html. Okay, I think we have some syntax error here. This one. Okay, it was class, so C should be here. Because without class, we won't be able to see any icon. Restart the application, reload the page. Okay, we can see the delete icon. So let's delete it. Click on delete, and it has been deleted. Now reload the page, and you can see it has deleted from the database. So let's go test 1, test 2, test 3, test 2. Now let's delete ticked item as well. So click here, deleted, deleted. Refresh, and you can see it is consistent with the backend. We have implemented the delete functionality as well. So at this point, everything is working. The delete functionality is working, the check and uncheck functionality is working, and adding a new to-do item is also working. So that's it for this video. I will upload this code in GitHub, and I will share the link in the description. Thank you for watching the video. I will meet you in the next video. Until then, keep learning. Bye.